Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew with James Kirkland.
Powerful and provocative, prophetic and practical,
Intellectual stew.
informative and inspirational. How you gonna do better if you don't know what better looks like? I do.
Intellectual stew.
Come on, let's talk about it with me, the mind massager.
Intellectual stew with
What's up? It's another night. It's another chance, another opportunity for us to come together and have a conversation where we spark, and what's up, Shani? Everyday conversation. Tonight, it's the intellectual stew, where we are not sipping tea, but instead we are serving stew. It is my mission every week to try to spark everyday conversation. Something that I think conversations that are substantive, conversations that are worthy of being discussed, because at the end of the day, it is my ultimate mission to try to repair the breach that exists in our, meaning African Americans, meaning Black Americans, in our communities. We can talk about Black Lives Matter, but if we don't have the substance to make it through, then it really does not matter. I had an interesting, well, first of all, before I move on, let me thank Tuck, Reverend Carlos Tucker. He has been, hey Myra, how you doing? He has been coming in the last couple of weeks. I'm talking to people on here. He has been coming in the last couple of weeks and helping me talk about the plot to destroy Black America. And we will get back to that subject, but tonight I just kind of wanted to freestyle and kind of talk from my head. I came in tonight and told Disco, I said, man, I have no clue what I'm going to talk about tonight. When I met with my children, because today is my daughter's birthday. Happy birthday, Kennedy. Kennedy turned 19 today. That's my baby. We had a little early birthday dinner at Longhorns. I tried my best to get her to pick another restaurant. But since she's been a little girl, we've been going to Longhorns. It's either Longhorns, Old Charlie's, or Cattleman's Company. But those are the three that we choose. And I really was giving her an opportunity to choose something. You know, it's kind of interesting now that I have been living alone or living single. I tried to expand my palate a little bit, so I don't just go to the chain restaurants or the normal restaurants, but I try to be a little creative and find some little holes in the walls or some little spots in downtown areas like downtown Smyrna or Marietta, and try some of the nicer restaurants. But nevertheless, we were able to see her and spend time with her, and she is beautiful. That's my little co-host. I love for her to come in. I love the way she helps me with the show to make sure all of the technical aspects are handled. So any flyer that you see, any commercial that you see, any of those types of things, she is responsible for that. And I tell her what I need, and she accommodates me, and I really do appreciate that. Listen, if you're listening to the show, feel free to go to DISCO100 Radio on YouTube. When you go there, first thing I want you to do is like and subscribe, and then you're able to see what is going on in the studio. I boosted a post last week, and I boosted the post where this video where I was actually in the studio. Just in the studio on Facebook Live, and all you saw was me with the green screen behind me. But if you will go to DISCO100 Radio, there you can actually see the greens. You can actually see the logo. It's very nice. Black Disco is on his job. He's helping me out a whole lot here. He has my logo behind me, and we're able to enjoy the intellectual stew. So if you are online right now, if you follow me, do me a favor, go ahead and like it. Go ahead and like this video. Go ahead and share it. If you want to go to DISCO100 Radio, do that. Tonight, I've actually labeled this show open mic night. So if you want to call in and talk about any subject that's near and dear to your heart, you just might want to get it off your chest, you're welcome to call in. You don't have to give your name. You can speak anonymously. I'm just going to ask that you tell me where you're from, and I'll do my best, as my friend John Wilson calls me, the mind massager. I'll do my best to try to help get through that whatever situation you're dealing with, because it is my desire for all of us as a community, collectively, for all of us to get on the path to better. If you can see that on my shirt, you see the hashtag. The hashtag says "on the path to better," on the path to better. And that came to me because I was kind of considering my process. For those of you all that know me, you know that I was married for almost 20 years. In 2017, I got the most devastating news in my life when my ex told me that she had found a rental and her and the girls were moving out. So all of a sudden you have me, my whole world came to, and felt like it was coming to an end. And I mean, then just things just seemed to just flow downhill from there. I never will forget, because at that time we were living in a rental, and man, I got ready to move into an apartment, and the day out, I moved in an apartment on a Sunday, got fired on a Monday. So it was a rough situation. I used to hear Kenneth Robinson say something like this. He would say, life sometimes is like pouring water on a drowning man. And at that point, I honestly felt like I was drowning. I felt like I was drowning. I was losing everything, didn't have a job. And honestly, the way I'm built, I really didn't even want a job, but I knew I had to have a job. I didn't have anybody to support me. I mean, not that I'm waiting on anybody to support me, but just kind of caught up in a bad situation. But one thing about it, through that whole ordeal and through these last 4 years, one thing I've done is I found myself. And in finding myself, that's why I'm quick to tell people that I'm on the path to better. I'm not there yet, but I'm definitely better now than I was this time last year. Because what I can honestly say to all of you who are listening is that through all of the ordeal that I went through, I came to know God even more so as a keeper. Because there were times, man, I didn't know how I was going to pay my rent. I didn't know what I was going to eat. During those times, I mean, people would gravitate to me and pull me closely. My pastor got real close to me, Gregory Sutton. Thank God for him. He made sure that I was eating every day, even when I didn't feel like eating, when I was going through my little stages of depression, or when I was trying to stay stuck on the couch. Whenever I wanted to stay stuck, he would call me and say, "Hey man, what you doing? Come on by the church," and make sure he kind of lifted me up. I had brothers that were strengthening me. I mean, I didn't really feel like iron, but at least I was kind of connected to iron that helped sharpen me. And when you're next to iron that's sharpening iron, what ends up happening is you become stronger. And that's what happened. Eventually, I went through my little process. I mean, I'll admit it. I mean, I don't even think I even told my ex this. There were so many times that I wouldn't pay my rent, trying to make sure that child support was handled. And every month I'm going into the courthouse trying to get me a few more days, just a few more days. But phone calls kept coming, little jobs, odd jobs. My odd jobs do pay pretty good. So, I mean, I was able to finally, kind of stabilize. And I'll be honest, the rent hadn't been late in over a year. All the bills are caught up, got a little money in the bank now. So I'll be honest, I am on the path to better. But I gotta be honest. There was a time that it felt like I was at a crossroad, and that crossroad came early in my marriage. And I'll be honest, there were in that with the decision as it relates to that crossroad, I probably made the wrong decision. Not as it relates to marriage. No, I'm talking about some wrong decisions in the marriage. And I had to live with that. I had to live with that. And now here I am. I've gone through my stages of being stuck on the couch. I've gone through my stages of being alone. I've gone through all of my stages, and now here I am, and I'm on the path to better. And let somebody know that might have been dealing with depression or dealing with some type of devastation, something that literally almost broke your heart. You don't have to stay in that state, but you can actually move towards a better place in life. You can, and it all starts with the changing of the mind. You have to have a different mindset. If you have, y'all know I'm a preacher. So being a preacher, I'm just a preacher. I try to reach to a different audience, but but I'm still a preacher. And I'm very familiar with the story of the prodigal son who went to his father and told his father that he wanted the goods that fell to him. And he was okay, because in that custom, you could do that. You could go to your father and ask for your inheritance while you were still alive. And but he took his inheritance and went to a far country, as the Bible calls it. And while he was there, the Bible says he wasted his substance with riotous living. There have been times in my life where I felt like I was in a far country, and I know, you can ask my ex, I'm sure I wasted some substance. And I did qualify, some of the things that I did qualify as riotous living. But what I can honestly say is that I did do like the prodigal son did. Wow, but the prodigal son was at a place where he was on his knees just about to eat the same thing the hogs ate. And then all of a sudden the Bible says he came to himself. In other words, he had an epiphany. He had a come to Jesus moment where he said, you know what, why would I take less when I have more available? And that's where I was, being broke, busted, disgusted, trying to figure out how I'm going to make ends meet. Then the pandemic came. And I'll be honest, the pandemic is probably one of the best things that happened to me as far as financially, because some doors opened up, some things began to change. And here I am now, like I said, on the path to better. So tonight we're going to talk about that, and we're going to deal with some other issues. Like the last couple of weeks, what we've been doing is we've been talking about the plot to destroy the black family. And please understand that the black family has always been under attack. That's from the beginning. When they brought us here as slaves, they realized the best way to handle us was by dividing us. And if you can divide something, even the scripture says a divided house cannot stand, because what happens is that which is divided, now you have two halves instead of one whole. And one whole can do a whole lot more than two halves can, because when you got two visions, when you got two different people, now you got two visions. Two visions creates division. And one thing about it is, when you got two people pulling in different directions, it's hard to go forward when you're pulling in different directions. And so they realized as long as they can keep us divided, then they would be able to destroy our family, because they understood the strength that resided in black families. When the slave would go to the field and could come home at night, he had a hiding place, man, and that was in his wife, and that was in his family, because his family was his blessing. His family was his joy. And even my children today, I went out to eat with them, even with my ex, and even when we all go together, we're still family, man. We and her, I don't badmouth her. I don't think she badmouths me, because we raised three children and did three being. And so out of all of that, what some would have called, and she probably was there quicker than I would, what some would call dysfunction, we were able to produce three functional children, man, and they're doing wonderful so far. So when we go out, we don't go out divided. Even now, when we got separated, the little speech we gave our children, she said, we want to make sure y'all understand one thing. No matter what happens, we're still Team Kirkland. She don't even have my last names left, but she understands that those are my children, and that what I put into them, and the investment that we made in those children, we expect great things from them, and we expect them together. So you have to be careful about allowing external entities to come in and to divide the family. And that's what we did. And unfortunately, the way that, according to Willie Lynch, the way that they were able to be successful in dividing the black family was by programming the black woman to help destroy the black family. How did she do that? What Willie Lynch said was, concerning the black woman and the breaking process, he says, we have reversed the relationship. In her natural uncivilized state, she has a strong dependency on the uncivilized male. In her natural, listen to this, in a black female's natural state, she has a strong dependency on the black male. Explain this to me. If in her natural state, I'm excited, I'm sorry. if in her natural state, if she has such a strong dependency on the black man, then answer this for me. Where did that whole mentality come from sisters? What sisters now say, I don't need a man. I'll wait. I'm waiting. Somebody answer that for me. If it's phone number 678-638-6626. If y'all want to talk about it, please let's talk about it. In this natural state, it's in her natural uncivilized state, she would have a strong dependent. I mean, when she came here from Africa, got off the ship while they were slaves, in her natural, what they call uncivilized state, she had a strong dependency on the man. But now in 2021, now you got so many sisters saying they don't need a man. Come on, somebody make that make sense for me. But let me drop this one on you for free. Before you came up with the concept that you felt like you don't need a man, guess what? It was already subliminally suggested by the government and already told you that you don't need a man. And what they said was that you don't need a man, and if you don't get a man, guess what? Don't worry about it. We'll still help take care of y'all babies. That's called welfare. Because the welfare system said we'll take care of you. We'll give you reduced prices on rent. We'll give you food stamps so y'all can get your food. We'll give you WIC so you can get your milk and your cheese and all those other things. We'll do all of those things. And what'll happen is we'll give you those. And when you get those, now we'll help take care of it. But the only stipulation is you can't have a man in the house. That's messed up. Why would they try to destroy families? Because they understood the strength that lied in that. Me and my mama had a conversation about this. Actually, earlier this week, we had a good conversation, and my mom said something that I thought was interesting because she said, first of all, she said, I didn't get on welfare. I didn't take welfare. And I said, why not? She said, well, first of all, it wasn't enough money. She said, because if I got another child, then I think they added $50 more to my welfare check, plus my little food stamps. $50 a month was not enough to raise a child. But then she said, but the way some women or some people, well, mostly women who would apply for those things, the way some of them would supplement their checks is to get their children diagnosed with certain types of conditions to increase the price of their check. So in other words, if you say something like your child has ADHD or something else, now you get the child put on medicine. Now you start getting a little more money. But here's the question right here. What did you really calculate the cost when you put the children on medicine? Because if you put a child on medicine at a young age, and now you've created a young, I don't want to say it like this, but it's really the truth. You've really created a young dopehead. Because now they have become chemically dependent on something. And so as if they need medicine from the first grade through I know it's still happening. If it happens from the first grade through the 12th grade, and they've been on Ritalin or whatever kind of medication it is to calm them down, and now they're always in a euphoric state. What teachers are doing is they're teaching, and Shani, maybe you can help me with this, but they're teaching these little zombies now, because you're creating little zombies that are on this medication, and then you wonder why they can't learn. How are they going to learn if they're always medicated? That's why you got children in 12th grade still doing 2 plus 2 and 4 plus 4 or 4 times 4. But you got people in the same school that are doing that these children are doing 2 plus 2, and they're doing physics and calculus. What's the difference? If they all came through the same birth canal, if they all came into the world at the same time, they're all in the same school at the same time. But now you got certain children that are medicated, and the reason some of you allowed your children to be medicated was so they could supplement your check. We gotta stop this welfare mentality, because now you created a little dopehead, and when he graduates, guess what? He's gonna still need drugs. He's still gonna need something to keep that mind straight. He's still gonna need something to make him focus. Man, now guess what we've done? We've given all of this, attributed all of these things to mental illness, but you created the mental illness. Huh? We created that, because I'm sure that ADHD was around when I was a child. I'm 49 years old now. I had my birthday last week. I'm 49 years old now. And when I was a child, I'm sure we had children that acted out in school too. But at Ridge Road Junior High in North Little Rock, Arkansas, If you got out of line, then you had to go in Mr. Ford's office. And Mr. Ford had this brown board that was about 1.5 feet long with holes in it. I ain't never have to go, thank God. But I was told about it, and you would get a paddling at school. We didn't want no paddlings. But you try to spank somebody's child now, or you try to discipline somebody's child now. But you created it, and you sent it to school. Now, how old am I? I'm 49. So I used to work in the school district in North Little Rock back in 1994. So around that to 1993, 94. And I would substitute teach in the school system. And I would work at the alternative school from time to time. And working at the alternative school, of course, there were a lot of children that were on medication. There were a lot of children that had the behavioral problems. And I remember one day I was working at an elementary school, and there was a point during the day where all of them wigged out at the same time. I mean, some started kicking and some started fighting, and one little boy scratched me, and then he bragged about scratching me, and I'm chasing him one down. A good thing I was still in shape back then. I chased one down the hall, had to bring him back, but then all of a sudden they gave them all medication, and in a few minutes everything was fine. How? And these are the teachers that are afraid of, some of them are afraid of the children, and I get it. And that was bad in 94, so I can only imagine what it's like in 2021 in this cancel culture where these parents where parents won't allow you to discipline their children. And if you do, then you're going to end up on the news, or you're going to end up at the end of somebody's camera or whatever. But parents, you're not the one at school dealing with these little jokers. But you don't want to discipline them. And discipline don't mean that you have to spank them. Discipline don't mean you have to beat them. Discipline is sometimes a stern conversation. I've had my 3 children that I raised. I promise you, and all Trey's 23 now. Well, he'll be 23 next week. Kennedy's 19. In raising my children, I promise you, I have not had to spank them, and I probably can count on one hand how much I spanked all of them in all of their years. I probably can. I mean, cause number one, I don't like beating on people that I love. I just, I know he who spoils a child. I get it. But there are other ways to discipline children. Now, I had a new perspective because my stepmother used to discipline me, and I swore up and down it was abuse. I promise you, I thought it was abuse. Even as of recently, I thought it was abuse. And I've had to. There's some things that I've had to get over, man, for real. Because I think some of the stuff that I did with her, or how she disciplined me, even affected me in my adult life and how I deal with some women. I know my ex said something about that once before, but she disciplined me, and her way of discipline was like if I made a bad grade, she would make me go to my room, and I would have to stay in that room for 9 weeks, 9 weeks, 9 weeks, 9 weeks, and that's a long time. And 9 weeks, that's like what, 3 months, 2.5 months, and she would do that, and I ain't gonna lie, in my adult recently, last week and a half, month ago, I still view that as I started to view that as abuse. I didn't understand why you would make a child go through the same punishment that you make prisoners do, because that's kind of like solitary confinement by my estimation, but. I thought about that, and sometimes what you view as abuse, really it can be masked as affliction, and that's good. That's good because the psalmist said it was good that I was afflicted because and when I'm afflicted, then I learn certain things, and I didn't even realize some of the things that I learned even sitting in that room by myself. And I had a good friend of mine. She and I had a conversation about this today, and she helped me see it a different way because I think I was harboring some anger. I was holding on to some grudges that probably kept me from moving forward, moving in my relationship. And it made me almost put up some walls in my past. You know what I'm saying? I kind of said I kind of disassociated myself from certain things as it relates to my childhood because I remember some of the things that were done to me, and I viewed them as abuse, but they were affliction, and it's good to be afflicted because when you're afflicted right, and that's the purpose of discipline. Discipline develops you, right? Discipline develops you, but abuse destroys you. And so when you look back over it and you truly quantify what discipline is doing to your children, and here's the sad part about it is that a lot of us that have had children or that are operating in the capacity of parents or a mother or a single father, or whatever you are, a lot of us really probably need to hand our parenting cards in because we haven't been put in a position, or we don't know how to position ourselves to effectively discipline our children. Because when you discipline your child, it should cause them to develop. I can remember sometimes, it's ironic sometimes when you spank a child in love, that the first thing that child will do is he'll come up to you and he'll hug you and he'll kiss you and say, "Mommy or Daddy, I won't do it no more." They're not running from it because some people need that type of discipline in their life. And they can tell if it's discipline by the love that you met, because love ought to have a face around it. It ought to be masked in discipline, and discipline will make you do certain things differently. But let's get back to that. We medicate a whole generation, but then wonder why we got a whole bunch of crackheads or a whole bunch of dope heads, because now they're doing stuff I don't even mean. I hear stuff with lean, meth, ice, all of these things. And what's interesting to me, they do them. I maybe can understand a little. I'm not going to say that. I'm not supposed to say that. But for real, these are things that if the statistics say if you try them, you might not come back from these things. And that's the last thing I want to do, is I want to try something that I hit one time. I mean, when crack hit the streets in 1986, I think 85, 86, it was people that became instant crackheads. And what's interesting now, 86, how many years is that? That's 14 plus 21, that's 35 years. So now, because y'all know it's some young grandmamas now, they brag about how young they are. I heard somebody say something about if you can steal this post about being a grandmama, you're not a grandmama at 40 years old, I bet you can't steal this post. Man, I'm 49 and don't have any grandchildren. So I don't know why people think that we're supposed to be have children so young in life, but then wonder why we aren't in a position to discipline them appropriately or care for them appropriately. Man, it was a struggle taking care of them 3 kids, man, and I can only imagine how hard it can be as a single mother. So that's why I think we really should have done things right. But going back to that, man, we 86. I remember because I was 86, 87. Because I went to high school in 88. I think 88, 89, that's when crack started hitting the streets. Because, I started hearing more about it. Friends started selling it. It started really hitting the streets hard, 89, 90. But what's interesting about that is, and I'm just rambling tonight, y'all, I'm just having fun. But I think the crime bill came, in 1983, 84? And in the crime bill, 83, 84, that's when they think Reagan declared that there would be a war on drugs. Y'all remember that? But the war on drugs started in 1984, but crack didn't hit the streets till 1986. So the drug that they were trying to start a war against hadn't even been introduced yet. But a plan had already been introduced, and the plan was to perpetuate what had already been taking place. Because what had already been taking place. You got to understand that when they abolished slavery, there went a whole lot of free labor. And if the free labor is no longer available, I'm trying to tie this all together to make this all make sense. But if the free labor is no longer available, well, how is it that you recoup that free labor? So after Reconstruction, during the days of Jim Crow and the black codes, where one of the laws was that if you were unemployed, then you could be taken to jail. And while you were in jail, then what would happen was that then the local businesses would come and hire out your services. And now you're, in essence, right back in slavery again. And so this has happened all throughout history, right? But then in the 50s and 60s and so all this stuff, we started to get a sense of self-pride. Man, we started to start singing. James Brown was singing songs like "I'm Black and I'm Proud," right? And all of a sudden now we're unified, man. We got strong community, even in the 20s. You know, think about it. I mean, Tulsa. I mean, we all these years, man, we were getting stronger. We were getting stronger. I mean, we built Black Wall Street. We built the 9th Street District in Little Rock, Arkansas. We built Rosewood. I mean, when we came together collectively as a unit, I mean, we had our own grocery stores. We had our own doctor's offices. We had our own law offices. I mean, we dressed, I like the term they would use, we would dress to the nine. I mean, when they went to a Negro League baseball game, they would put on a suit and a tie, and they would put on a hat, and they would go out there, and the women would have on dresses because they had a certain sense of pride when they went to all of these different places. And then it was interesting because at the Negro League they would dress up, but at the white leagues they didn't do all of that, man. We carried ourselves in a certain way because we had a certain sense of pride. There was a familial structure in place where there was even though we were kind of acclimating or acquiescing towards the egalitarian culture, because even though we came from a communal culture in Africa, as we began to acquiesce and acclimate to this egalitarian culture, we still had a certain sense of pride because it was a husband, it was a wife, and we had children, and we went to church on Sunday. And I know y'all say that that's the slave master's religion, whatever, miss me on that one. But all of these types of things that went on, we had a certain sense of pride. But look at us now, and they knew it. They knew it, and so what they always tried to do is they tried their very best to divide us the very best they could. So here comes Fair Housing Act of 1967. So now all of the successful people in the hood or in the Black community or on the other side of the track, now they have an option, right? Now they don't have to stay in the hood. They can move across the tracks over there where the other people live. But what I couldn't understand is why you go where you weren't wanted. Why did you move out of an area where you were strong and had strength? And our schools we were learning about Black history. We were learning the things that we needed to learn. But because they said we could, we did. And when we left, guess what? We left our people exposed. I remember I read a study one time, Robert Taylor homes in Chicago. I think they've been torn down now. But they said at that time there were like 89%, something like that, single mothers living in those homes. Why? Because we allowed an outside entity. We allowed the enemy to come in and to destroy our families. Because now when we move to the other side of the tracks, even though we're getting crosses burned in our yard, and because we're getting egg and getting things thrown at our houses, and we're being treated like animals, man, but because they said we could, and because I got the money, I get it. Do what you did. Do what you did, and look what it left. It left us just like we did. And now the same hoods that used to be thriving, that used to be vibrant, that used to be bubbling, a lot of those same neighborhoods are desolate. A lot of those same neighborhoods are being destroyed, they're being decayed. Why? Because they lack leadership. They don't have people that are coming in. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. What happens oftentimes is that we function in dysfunction for so long that after functioning in dysfunction for so long, now dysfunction seems normal, and we begin to operate with a new normal. Tell me how that works? That's where we are, because now the society said you don't need a man. Yeah, but they told you that before we did it on our own. They said you don't need a man. They said they'll supplement that check. They said if you can't have a man in the house. They said as long as you do this, then we'll take care of you. And we exchanged it, right? And we exchanged it. And then people learned to live off of less. I had a conversation with a young lady, and I tried to hire her to come sell insurance now. And the numbers I was throwing at her were real numbers. I mean, I was telling her that, if she does this right, she can easily make $10,000 a month. You do the math, $10,000 a month times 12 is $120,000 a year. If you do it right, if you follow the system, you can make this kind of money, right? And she said, well, will I still be able to get my refund check? Okay. So I started to do some math in my head. I said, well, how much is your refund check? She said, a refund check might be about $10,000. I said, okay, cool. I said, how much you make on your job? She said, I think, and I'm going to use a higher number. I think she said $14 an hour. So I'm doing math in my head. If I'm wrong, somebody that's looking, use a calculator to help me out. So if you do 40 hours at $14 an hour, I think that's $560 a week. Somebody add this up for me. $560 a week times 52. So we're gonna say it's 52 weeks in a year, which it is. So 560 times 52, what's that, around 28,000 and change, somewhere in that neighborhood, 28, 120. I'm not 100% sure, but I know it's not 120,000. So if you got 20, so if you make, let's say 30,000, let's use the easy number. You make 30,000 on your job. First of all, they're gonna take taxes out of that. So go on and just take about 25% out of that. So 30,000. So 30,000 just went down to, if you take 30%, that's 7,500. 30,000 just went back down to 22,500. And even if you did get a $10,000, I'm doing this math in my head, y'all. Even if you did get a $10,000 refund check, 22,000 plus 10,000, I don't care how you add that up, that's not but $32,000. Okay, so but I offered you a job with your personality, with your mindset, the way you talk. What is it? 29. Okay, 29K. So I was in the neighborhood. So the way she talks, the influence she has, everybody would probably buy insurance from her, because insurance really is not as expensive as people think it is. And you can stop with all these GoFundMe's and all this stuff to find it. GoFundMe was never intended to come in place to help y'all pay for your loved ones when they pass away. That was not the purpose of GoFundMe. GoFundMe uses for certain certain charities, or if an emergency comes up, all those type of things. But there's insurance in place that you can pay about the same thing or less that you pay for your cell phone, and you can make sure that you are covered in the event that you pass away. But she could have made $120,000 a year, and when you sell insurance, you are a 1099 employee, which means that the government does not take a mask and a firearm and rob you and strong arm you and take your money from you, but instead they give you, when you're 1099, you get all of your money. And so you write them a check at the end of the year. You basically tell them, well, I'm gonna write off this dry cleaning, I'm gonna write off this telephone. Well, I got an office at home, so I'm gonna write off a portion of my rent. I got all these things. And then you write them a check. Now, even if you wrote them a check for 20 grand, what's 120 minus 20? Yeah, I'm gonna wait. Y'all tell me, please. 120,000, even if you write a check for 20,000, is $100,000. That's the kind of money that's available. But in order to do that, you got to come out of this welfare mentality. But we don't understand. The welfare mentality came from subliminal suggestion. And what they did was, in the process, they devalued African American men so much that they made you think you don't need us. You do. And you know what? Sad part about it is, the they that everybody talks about is really a non-existent person. Because a lot of that was just subliminal suggestion. Tell me who they is other than the government. Tell me, please. I want to know. Because they get a lot of credit for stuff that first of all, who said that black women didn't need black men? What person said that? I don't think black women said that. I really believe that it was suggested. And then once it was suggested, then that lie was perpetuated. And as that lie was perpetuated, then it became easier for us to be by ourselves. Especially if they're going to give us a little check. Especially if they're going to give us some food stamps. Especially if they're going to give us some bit. Oh, yeah, I forgot to add that in. So if you do, okay, I'll add that part back in. So no, if you get $30,000 a year, you can't get food stamp. You can't get all of the assistance. But if you do get assistance, say they give you $500 a month for $500 a month for food stamps. So that's $6,000 a year. Your rent's reduced to, say, $100 a month, so you saving probably $7,200 a year there. If you got $700 rent, would have normally been $7. So even with that, your benefits ain't no more than $20,000, if that, at the most. But you could be making a whole lot more. Why? The only reason you would turn down more to hold on for less is if this mentality has been ingrained in you and you're cool with it. That's the only way. Last week I was hanging out somewhere. It was my birthday, so y'all, I kicked it. I'm not gonna tell y'all where I was. You know why? Because it was none of your business where I was. But I was hanging out last week, and I was having this conversation with this young lady, and I found out how but in the conversation, she looked a little older than she actually was. We started talking. She told me what her actual age was, and as we continued the conversation, I really was trying to get out of it. But as we continued the conversation, she called me the N word. She said nigga this, nigga that, and the N word, yeah, all that, and she called me that, and I said who? She said, I said don't call me that. She said why not? I said because that's not my name, first of all. And then she said, well, I don't know your name. I said, well, it's easy to ask what my name is as opposed to calling me out of my name. I said, but my problem is number one, I'm old enough to be your father. And with me being old enough to be your father, you've reduced me as a black man. I can't even get the respect of being the potential age of your father. I don't know if you know him or not. You might not. But I can't even get the respect by me having the age that I have on me. You reduced me to the whatever normal black men you see. I said the world has given you so many negative images of black men that you devalue them so much that you have the nerve to call me anything other than my name. I wouldn't call you nothing but your name. And she said, you know what? You're right. I'm sorry. And this isn't the first time that happened. I had this happen one day in a grocery store. Excuse me, at a hotel. I was there asking the attendant if I could park in the parking lot. And the girl called around and said, nigga, I said, who? The young girl don't know me. She said, and then when she heard my voice, she said, oh, sir, I'm sorry. How old are you? I said, that doesn't matter. You should respect me just as a man. And so many people say, well, you ain't earned my respect. Well, I haven't earned your disrespect either, though, have I? So, the worst case, I might say yes, sweetheart, or yes, ma'am, or what. I've called people 25, 26, 27 years old, ma'am, just because I respect you as a human. Everybody starts off with 100 with me. I'm not going to all of a sudden devalue you as a person because, why not start life off with 100 and then allow them to lose the points? Why we got to start people off with a 0 and then expect them to earn the points back? That's really not fair, but that's the capitalistic society that we live in. We live in a society where somebody has to lose and somebody has to win. And then what we do is we glorify the winner, but we try to say that the loser is the least of these or less. And it's not true. We're all even. We just had a competition. We good. And that's okay. I think that's why Paul said that we can live peaceably among all men. Why? Because we need to learn how to cordially coexist. But we as a community right now, we're so divided, man. We're so divided. And we got to figure out how we can repair some of the breaches that exist in our community. So how can we do that? Because I had a friend ask me a question. They said, I hear all the problems, James. And but the thing is, where are the solutions? And I said, yeah, we do have the problems, but usually when we talk about the problem, we're talking about the problem to people who don't have problems. Because all of those that are in academia, all of those that are in a position to help change our communities, we'll sit here and we'll have a conversation about people who need help, but then we won't go and effectively offer those individuals help or make the help accessible. I never will forget when I was in undergrad at Beulah Heights. Beulah Heights was was one of the best things that ever happened to me as far as school. I needed that to kind of calm me down in that crossroad I was in life. And I never will forget, we were having a conversation. While we were there at Beulah Heights, man, we were having this conversation as it relates to community, right? And how to build community. And one of the terms that came up was collective efficacy. And we talked about knowing our neighbor and being willing to act on their behalf. And so we were introduced to this Dudley Street project up, I think it is in Massachusetts. And Dudley Street was a very crime-ridden area. It was down. It had been downtrodden. There were dumps that were in the area and all those types of things. And there was a group of outsiders, a group of white Americans that wanted to go in and help fix this community. They had going to throw a whole lot of money at the problem. And when they threw money at the problem, the people immediately rejected them. The people immediately rejected them. They fought back. And then but what the people with Dudley Street Project did is they went back and they reassessed their plan. And when they reassessed their plan, they started to realize where they had gone wrong. And so what they did was they reapproached. And when they reapproached this time, they went to the community first and they asked them what they needed in the community. And so they found these things called community captains. And these community captains came in. And when they came in, they said, okay, we need this, we need this, we need this, we need this. And then so this time when the people came back in and when they reapproached a totally different way. And when they came in, now they started to revitalize some of the homes. They created green spaces that used to be dumps. They created ways that they could do owner financing so that the people in those communities could buy the same houses that they lived in. And eventually the crime stopped. All of those things began to change. Why? Because those people began to have a certain sense of self-pride about themselves. That's what they did, is they took away the self-pride that we once had. They assassinated it. Devalue the black man so bad. I mean, I was reading an article earlier today before I came here, and it was talking about where the term super predator came from. And it started with, I think, a lawyer in Philadelphia, and this was during the 80s, during the war on drugs. And then when Clinton came in, then all of a sudden Clinton started using that term, and it all started because of some young African American man, I think, that allegedly raped somebody. He was in prison for 21 years for a crime. They found out he didn't commit that crime. But whenever they started using it, and that term started making its way through the media, and anytime they would talk about somebody that was a super predator, guess who he looked like? He looked like me. He looked like an African American man. He was dark skinned, wide nose, nostrils. I mean, and so all of a sudden now, these super predators, they've equated them to animals. That's why you can see police in 2020, 2019, 2018. That's why you can see them shoot a black man down like a dog, because see, when they did super predator things, right, that's when they started trying to treat us and try to equate us as animals. When they try to devalue us so bad that we're almost inhuman, or we're not human. So that's why and this what's interesting is that when they were programming us, they were also programming themselves. That when they were indoctrinating us, they had to believe the stuff they were indoctrinating in us. That's why when they see it was so amazing to me, man. I mean, when Mike Brown and Trayvon and all these people, when they were getting killed and all these things, there was video that people were seeing, but they were looking at the same video and coming up with different scenarios. Well, I still don't know what all happened. You saw what happened. The boy was in the park, 12 years old. Police pulled up. 12 seconds later, he's shot. You saw what happened. When the man in South Carolina, Walter, whatever his name, I forgot his name, Walter Scott, was confronted by a police officer. He took off running. This policeman took his time and literally aimed and shot this man in the back. You saw what happened. When that man was selling those, Jeffrey Garner, whatever his name was selling loose cigarettes and ended up getting choked out by all of those policemen. I mean, you're selling cigarette is not worth your life. At a certain point, common sense ought to come in. And if common sense don't show up, common decency ought to make an appearance and say, you know what? I ain't got to choke this man out over a cigarette for real. But the reason you can do that is when you've looked at someone and you don't value him, or you don't view him as an equal. You view him as something that's less than you. That you view yourself as being superior or supreme. That's why I say black people can't be racist. I know that's controversial. I get it. But most people who say that black people are racist, they don't take the time to do some critical thought. Critical thoughts teaches you that racism and prejudice are two totally different things. I can be prejudiced and not like you, but I can't be racist unless I'm able to oppress you or to keep you down some kind of way. If I can't oppress you, or if I can't affect your life economically, if I can't change your condition like that, then there's no way. We ain't in what country. No, I'm not gonna do that part of it, but I'm not gonna say that. But that happens when they think they're so much better than us, and that our lives don't matter as much as their lives matter. Our lives matter. But you might not hear me say certain statements and certain. I might not stand in a picket line or certain things like that. But I'm trying to help build the minds of those that are in our communities to help us, if anything, just view life a little bit differently. And not only that, not only to view our lives differently, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get us to, here it is, I'm trying to get us to understand why things are like they are, and understand why we are where we are, and just understand, also to understand that life was a process. We didn't just wake up like this. We didn't just wake up divided. We didn't just wake up with an astronomical amount of single parent homes. We didn't just wake up in a society where the divorce rate for Black women is higher than the marriage rate, meaning that more Black women are getting divorced every year than they are getting married. We didn't just wake up like that. Things happened. Seeds were planted. Stuff happened over the years that caused us to end up like this. And we got to figure out what we can do. I have a plan. I think it could work if Black men and Black women would learn how to, at least first of all, to reconcile, tell each other we're sorry. If we as men need to apologize first, then I'll do it. We need to apologize to one another. And then once we apologize, once we reconcile, then we need to restructure for real, man. We need to restructure and rebuild and start to really rebuild our community. Really focus on building our families back again. Focus on building our families back again. Now, I mean, people talk so much about down low men, but women are right out in public with that thing now. I mean, seriously, man, women marrying men, women, and it is what it is. I mean, I get it. But we wonder why our lives are like they are. We got issues, man, and we gotta fix them. But it happens when we reconcile. It also happens when we restructure, and then once we reconcile and restructure, then we can start the whole process of rebuilding again. And that's what I want to do. I want us to start rebuilding. Now, I've enjoyed this conversation tonight. We've had a good time talking about these things. We're going to get back into some more discussions, more relevant discussions as it relates to trying to get this community on the path towards better. Now, y'all see the shirt that I have on now. It's the hashtag on the path to better. I'm going to be giving away a few of these shirts. If you go to my Instagram page, you see it here. Oops, I see I made a typo, Disco. I put intellectual _ stew _ JA comma ESK. It's supposed to be JAMESK. That was me. I typed that in. So if you want to follow me, go to see the instructions on IG at intellectual _ stew _ James K. Go there and you'll see instructions as it relates to how you can win your very own hashtag on the path to better shirt. I will be announcing the winner on next week's show. I'll be announcing the winner. So please, ma'am, please, sir, go there. And if you go there, you'll be able to see how you can win your own shirt. So do that. Also, you see there the YouTube, the Intellectual Stew with James Kirkland. Go there and subscribe for me, please. Tonight, if you're able to look at this live, you're at DISCO100. But by tomorrow or the next day, you'll be able to see the replay on my channel. So go to IG or Facebook. You'll see the instructions on how to win your own shirt. Listen, I've enjoyed myself tonight. We'll get back together. Hopefully I can get the kids back in the studio with me next week. They didn't want to come tonight. I guess I fed them too much food earlier. But I've enjoyed myself. Thank you all that listened in. Remember this, the world is changing. Why do you remain the same? We're on the path to better.